It's raining here today. I'm looking out the window behind you at the rain, and I thought I would test my binaural microphone and see if I'm getting some good spatialized audio. And while I'm doing that, I thought I would read you a nice story that I wrote, one of my flash fiction pieces. So, before I start in on that, I will tell you a little bit about this story. It's called A Bear in the Woods. I first wrote it for The Magnificent Nose, which is an online publication. I don't think it exists anymore. It was run by a friend of mine. It was first published there on June 10th, 2014, so quite a while ago. It is 500 words, and it is based on a true story. So A Bear in the Woods, for those of you who don't know, there's the expression of, should we call it disbelief maybe? Expression of disbelief is, you say something like, no, disbelief's not the right word, but anyway, you say something like, do you think Mom's going to be pissed off about that? And somebody says, does a bear shit in the woods? Which means, well, duh, yeah, clearly it's obvious. So, there are a lot of variations of that, but this was particular. I chose the title because it's a story about a lost bear in the woods. And it's also a story based on an anecdote of me and my dad. And my dad would get a kick out of using expressions like that. So that's why I chose that title. I also have the bear in question. I still have him. This is him right here. His name is Herman. I've had him since I was a little girl. He used to have a yellow satin ribbon around his neck that I lost. Something happened to it, so it was replaced with a little piece of fabric that was cut with pinking shears. So pinking shears have the little V-shaped teeth. So when I was a kid, my mom used to sew sometimes, and she had pinking shears, and it was I thought it was very fancy. They're supposedly used to help keep the fabric from unraveling, I think. But even though, I sew stuff, I don't understand how that would work. But it gives it kind of a fancy edge. And this was way back in the day before we had, scrapbooking was a thing. So these were, heavy metal shears with, these, serrated teeth to it. So they're pretty badass looking. And anyway, I just thought they were the coolest thing. We only use them on special occasions. Anyway, so the point is, she cut a replacement ribbon, using pinking shears that he wore for a while, and then that's gone too. He's also had his tongue replaced. He had a little, I think it was satin, pink tongue, but it wore off. Because you can see he's been loved a lot. Herman was I would say my favorite, but he wasn't my favorite. He wasn't my favorite stuffy. I had an elephant I took everywhere with me, but he was definitely the second. So he hung out with me and Kyle, the elephant, a lot. And anyway, this story I'm about to tell you is a story about how when I was a kid, I was tiny, 4 or 5 maybe, I had Herman with me. We had a woodlot. It's probably an unusual thing for people to have a woodlot. When you live in the middle of nowhere and you burn wood to heat your house, it's relatively common to have a woodlot, which is a place where you would go and cut wood to bring to your house to store in your woodshed for the winter, so you could burn it for keeping your house warm. And I'm pretty sure that's what we had the woodlot for. I'm not actually 100% sure. But one of the cool things about it is we used to go there and cut our Christmas trees. So that was cool. Anyway. And so we were out there doing whatever Dad did when we went out to the woodlot. Me and my brothers and Herman. And he had taken a log, from a tree that he had cut, and he cut it into a chair. So he made a back so you could sit on it, and it was a little kid-sized chair, and it was very cool. And he had set it down next to it's like a pond. It wasn't really a pond. It was more like a large puddle where water had collected because it had been rainy. And we could see that there were frogs' eggs in there. So he set it down next to the pond, which I thought was super cool. And I had a tea party there by myself while he was doing whatever he was doing. And then it was time to go. So he came and got me, and we went home. And then when I got home, I realized that I had left Herman sitting on the chair next to the frog pond, and I was very upset. So my dad took me out to get him. And he had a big red pickup truck. I believe it was a Ford. Of course, they didn't have lots of safety features for kids at the time. It was just a bench seat, so I was buckled in. And it was dark. And what I remember most about it was there was this weird kind of spooky song on the radio that later, as an adult, I realized was Rapture by Blondie. So, that's my dog sighing over there. So, but it actually gave me nightmares about aliens. Anyway, okay. So I'm going to read you the story. I'm going to put Herman over here so I can pick up the thing that I have the story on. I have the story on my phone, so I'm going to read it on my phone. And I'll read you the story. It's called A Bear in the Woods. Mom? Jenny gasped in a panic, groping under her pillow in the dim light. I left Herman at the woodlot. Her mother tucked the old quilt around her more tightly. You can make do with your duck until we go again. She reached over and grabbed Duck McStuffins. No, Jenny wailed. We can't just leave him there. It's dark. What do you have to be upset about? Her mother muttered. You weren't the one abandoned in the woods by your mommy. She stacked Jenny's books on the floor next to the bed. Jenny watched her mother for a long moment and then began to cry. But I didn't mean to. Oh, poor Herman. Why are you crying, Rabbit? Her father poked his head in the door. Jenny wiped her eyes with her sleeve. My bear. I left him. He sat on the bed with a creak. Herman decided to have a little adventure, huh? Her mother sighed in irritation. She probably forgot him when she went chasing butterflies. There were frogs in the pond. Jenny snuffled. Her father nodded slowly. We don't get out there much. There's a lot to see. He stood up. Come on then, let's get our boots on. She looked up at him hopefully. Her mother snorted. It's bedtime. She's in her jammies. He shrugged. It's hard to sleep when you're worried about a friend. It's an hour drive. He gave her mother a long look. Fine, but you're putting her to bed when you get back. A little while later, her father pushed aside his dirty work gloves and boosted her into the passenger seat of the old pickup. They rode in silence for long minutes. As her father left the town limits, he glanced over at her, bears live in the woods, you know. He turned the heater up a little. Maybe Herman made some friends. Jenny mulled this over, watching the ghosts of trees flicker in the headlights. I think he might be scared of other bears. She shuffled her feet through the discarded coffee cups to push her feet against the floor vent. Her father nodded solemnly. Then I think he might ask them to tea. He only had cookies, she sighed. I was getting tea from the frog pond. Even better, her father rumbled. I'm sure he made friends if he had your cookies to share. He pulled into the woodlot and asked her, Will you come with me and hold my hand so I don't get scared in the dark? She hesitated, then nodded. Their shadows loomed large in the headlights, his hand wrapped warmly around hers. There he is. Jenny scooped up her bear from a hollowed stump and hugged him fiercely. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Her father picked her up, and she hugged him too. I'm glad we didn't leave him all alone, Daddy. We never would, little rabbit. She yawned and put her head on his shoulder. Let's go. So that is a true story about Herman was lost and found when I was a little girl. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helps you sleep. And I hope that my sound check turns out okay. I'm going to one more time talk over here, and then one more time talk over here. And then I will see you soon.